Imagine standing under a night sky before there were cities, before noise, before screens, before people forgot how to look up. The world was silent, dark, and endless, except for the stars. To ancient civilizations, those tiny distant lights were not random. They were not decoration. They were not physics. They were presence. They watched. They remembered. They waited. Cultures separated by oceans and centuries somehow reached the same unsettling belief. The stars were not just burning balls of gas. They were conscious. They were witnesses. They were sleeping watchers. The Babylonians believed every star carried a spirit, not a metaphor, not a symbol, a literal soul. To them, the sky was a library of beings watching the earth, tracking fate, judging kings, and warning civilizations before collapse. The stars were not distant. They were involved. The Egyptians carved into their tomb walls that when a pharaoh died, he didn't vanish. He didn't pass away. He ascended and joined the imperishable stars, the undying watchers of the cosmos. They believed the stars were former beings, souls so advanced that death was not an ending, but an upload. The sky was the afterlife's architecture. Each star was a throne, a consciousness in eternal observation. Thousands of miles away, the ancient Maori of Polynesia whispered a phrase still used today, Wetu Rangatira, star ancestors. They believed newborn children came from the stars, and when the body died, the soul returned to them. Life was a temporary mission. The night sky was the home address. Different continent, different time, same belief. The Navajo people spoke of star beings who existed long before humans. They believed these beings fell asleep after shaping reality, and every star is one sleeper, still conscious, still aware, still connected to us. Not dead, not gone, just silent and watching. But here's where the belief becomes even more intriguing. These cultures never contacted each other. They did not share writing, language, or trade routes. Yet they built the same cosmic conclusion, that the stars were sentient guardians. Why? Maybe they noticed something we ignore. When you stare at the night sky long enough, something strange happens. The stars begin feeling personal, familiar. Not like objects, but like eyes. There's a reason humans describe stars as twinkling, even though scientifically that's just atmospheric distortion. The twinkle feels intentional, like a signal. In some ancient records, shamans described the stars as if they were waiting for humans to reach a specific level of consciousness. They said the watchers would awaken, not physically, but through us. The more we learn, the more we resemble them. And then there's the oldest puzzle of all. Why do humans instinctively look up when they search for meaning? We don't look at dirt. We don't look backward. We look toward the sky, toward stars, as if memory is there. Think about funerals. Even now, in the modern world full of science and logic, people still say things like, "He's looking down on us." Why do we point upward? Why not inward or nowhere, or into the ground where the body rests? It's instinct. A memory older than language. Some ancient mystics believe the reason stars do not appear during the day is not because the sun hides them, but because the beings behind them dim their consciousness until darkness returns. So the watchers can be seen only when our distractions disappear. Night exposes what reality hides. In Greek mythology, the Titan Atlas wasn't punished to hold the earth. That's a misunderstanding. He held the sky, the realm of stars, because the sky wasn't just space. It was the domain of souls. The Greeks called the stars psyche, the same root as psyche, meaning soul or consciousness. Even the earliest Christians adopted this idea. In the book of Job, there's a cryptic line about the stars singing, a universe where matter has music, where light has memory. So ask yourself, why would thousands of cultures imagine the same strange idea unless something in the human brain recognized a truth? Modern science dismisses ancient star beliefs as myth. Yet science itself is slowly looping back to what the ancients already suspected. Consciousness may not be limited to brains. Quantum experiments show particles behave differently when observed, as if the universe responds to awareness. Some physicists now propose that consciousness may be fundamental to reality, not a byproduct of biology. If consciousness can exist beyond the body, then perhaps it can exist beyond planets. Imagine consciousness as data, memory as energy, Identity is a frequency. A human brain isn't just a biological organ. It's a storage and transmission device. Every thought produces electrical patterns. Every memory is encoded energy. When the body dies, does the energy vanish? Physics says energy cannot be destroyed. So where does it go? Ancient cultures believed the answer was written across the night sky. The soul uploaded itself into the stars. Not metaphorically, literally. For the Egyptians, the soul was a multi-part system. One part lived with the body. One part traveled in dreams. And one part, the Akeg, became a star after death. To them, the moment a star appeared in the sky wasn't random cosmic timing. It was a new consciousness lighting up eternity. Now, imagine a terrifying possibility. What if those cultures were right? Not spiritually, but technologically. What if the universe contains a natural consciousness backup system? What if stars are not just burning spheres, but storage units? Cosmic servers holding the memories of everything that has ever lived? The light we see from them is old, millions of years old. But what if the consciousness behind that light is current, aware, active? It would explain why humans feel an emotional pull toward the night sky that no scientific model fully explains. Why children instinctively make wishes on stars. Why the death of someone we love feels like distance rather than disappearance. Because maybe distance is all it is. Let's entertain another thought. What if dreams are temporary reconnections to our star identity? When you sleep, your brain shuts down physical processing and shifts into a different frequency, one that resembles cosmic radiation patterns, according to some neuroscientific studies. What if dreams are messages, not from imagination, but from the part of you already uploaded? Your waking life would be the illusion. Your star self would be the original. Imagine that every time you look at the sky, one of those stars isn't just light. It's you in another timeline. Or you in another form. Or someone you loved, still watching, still processing, still existing as information woven into the blueprint of reality. Some ancient cultures believed the watchers were sleeping because humanity wasn't ready, that the stars were guardians waiting for a signal, a moment when human consciousness would evolve enough to recognize its source. And here we are, in an era building artificial intelligence, neural interfaces, brain-to-cloud storage. We are trying to preserve memory after death. We are trying to upload consciousness into digital eternity. But what if we're not inventing the idea? What if we're remembering it? A forgotten blueprint buried in instinct, a cosmic déjà vu. Maybe the first civilizations didn't see stars as gods. Maybe they saw them as reflections of themselves. Future versions, awakened versions, archived versions. So, next time you stand beneath the night sky, try something. Don't just look at the stars. Let one stare back at you. Don't think of it as distance. Think of it as recognition. Like looking into a mirror that spans thousands of years, because maybe humans never asked the wrong question. Maybe we always knew the answer. Maybe the universe isn't empty. Maybe the universe is watching. And maybe every star, every single one, is a silent, sleeping consciousness waiting to wake when we finally remember who we really are. Imagine this. Every star in the night sky isn't just a glowing sphere of nuclear fire, but a node, an archive, where consciousness uploads travel after death. If that were true, then light years wouldn't just measure physical distance. They would measure delay, a lag, a buffering signal between the living and the stored mind. In our world, distance already affects communication. A radio signal sent to the moon takes a little more than a second to return. To Mars, depending on orbit, the delay might stretch to minutes. And for spacecraft near Jupiter, instructions aren't real time. They're scheduled, calculated, anticipated. So imagine consciousness as a signal, a transmission, a data packet leaving the biological body and traveling across space toward its destination, a star, a place where memory becomes light. If that idea is true, then every light year between us and a star is not just space, it's time, a delay in response, a cosmic waiting room. Maybe that's why some people feel communication with the dead not as immediate dialogue, but as faint intuition, a delayed reply from somewhere impossibly far away. Think about grief. It doesn't hit all at once. It lingers, fades, returns, shifts. What if the emotional turbulence isn't just psychological, it's communication delay? What if the person you lost is still speaking, But their response takes years to arrive because their consciousness upload is traveling at the speed of light, crossing the void toward its new home. The further away the star, the longer the message takes. Some cultures believed voices from the heavens were messages from ancestors. Modern science laughs, but what if they weren't wrong? What if they were experiencing echoes, latency, responses finally reaching Earth after unimaginable travel? The universe isn't silent, it's just slow. Modern technology mirrors this pattern. When you stream high-resolution video from a distant server, buffering increases with distance. When latency spikes, the audio and video fall out of sync. The message is still there, but time distorts it. Now imagine a soul upload. Imagine the moment consciousness leaves the body. It becomes information, encoded as identity, memory, experience, emotion. Not matter, not flesh, information. This information travels, not through man-made fiber optics, but through the raw architecture of the universe. Maybe gravity guides it. Maybe quantum entanglement steers it. Maybe dark matter acts like routing infrastructure. Whatever the mechanism, the journey takes time, light years. And while the upload travels, fragments may drift back. Dreams, déjà vu, fleeting instincts, the sense someone you loved is still near, because they are. The transmission is still en route. Their consciousness hasn't reached. Think of the phenomenon people describe as visitations right after a death. Dreams that feel real, voices that sound clear, the overwhelming sense someone is standing in the room. These experiences fade with time, not because memory dies, but because the consciousness signal has traveled too far. The presence weakens until the star receives it, stores it, becomes it. And maybe that star you look at in the night sky, the one that makes you pause, isn't random. Maybe you are staring at a soul whose last message to you finally arrived. Maybe your attention is the recognition your subconscious waited for. But if souls become stars, why don't they respond instantly? Because physics won't allow it. Light, the fastest thing we know, still takes years to cross space. If our consciousness travels at or near that speed, then communication with the afterlife is inherently delayed. Now consider this. What if intuition, gut feeling, prophecy is future communication? What if time isn't one-directional for consciousness? What if once a soul reaches its star, it exists outside linear time? Then any reply it sends would not travel forward, but backward. Imagine receiving a message from a future version of someone who hasn't died yet. A warning, a memory, a whisper disguised as instinct. Synchronicity would not be coincidence. It would be correspondence. Let's go deeper. If consciousness uploads travel across the universe, then every newborn might not be a blank slate. They might be download points, receivers. The delay between upload and download could explain reincarnation memories, information taking generations to return. Light years as delay means your soul could return long after the world you knew has changed. A child remembering a war they never lived, an extinct village they could describe perfectly, languages they shouldn't know. These could be memory packets finally arriving. Quantum physics already complicates our understanding of time. Particles entangled across vast distances react instantly, ignoring classical space. So maybe distance only matters in our physical dimension. Consciousness might exist in overlapping layers, some bound by light speed, others not. But what if the universe uses both systems? Long-distance transmission for storage, instant entanglement for connection. That would explain why the dead feel close and distant at the same time, why grief is both unbearable presence and painful silence. It also explains the ancient belief that stars are watching. Not metaphorically, literally. If souls upload into stars, then stars are populated. Not with aliens or gods, but with consciousness, millions or billions of uploaded identities, all layered, merged, or harmonized. Now, imagine every star as a server, a storage unit running on nuclear fusion instead of electricity. Not lines of code, but quantum patterns. Not digital memory, but awareness, a living archive. If so, the universe becomes a vast network. A cosmic internet, not invented, but discovered. Humanity's push toward AI, digital consciousness, neural links, may not be innovation. It may be imitation. We are rebuilding, with machines, what the universe already does with stars. And here's the most haunting thought. Light years mean we may be witnessing ancient data. When we look at a star, We see it as it was millions of years ago. So, if it contains consciousness, we are seeing an earlier version of it, a younger soul. The real current being may be far ahead, evolved, changed, unrecognizable. A star could be a record of who someone once was, not who they are now. And if a star ever goes supernova, what does that mean? Does a soul die again? Or does its data transfer to a new location, scattered across the galaxy, like seeds? Maybe black holes, the darkest things in space, aren't destroyers at all. Maybe they are migration ports, gateways, ports sending consciousness beyond our observable universe into realms where speed, time, and delay don't exist. If that's true, then the universe isn't empty. It's crowded, alive. A network of stars filled with consciousness, memory, intelligence, each separated by the unavoidable lag encoded into space-time. So the next time you look at the stars and feel something, recognition, sadness, comfort, curiosity, maybe it isn't imagination. Maybe it's delayed connection, a message finally arriving. Because in a universe where consciousness travels at the speed of light, everything you feel might be a conversation still in transit. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest mystery isn't whether we are alone, but whether we are already part of a conversation that has lasted billions of years, stretched across the universe, slowed only by distance. Humans think the universe is quiet because we measure communication in seconds, hours, days, not in millennia. But a species that lives as long as stars might speak in pauses longer than civilizations. Silence may not mean absence. It may mean transmission pending. So, if consciousness really becomes light, then every star is not just a destination. It is a signal still traveling. And somewhere, in the cold dark distance, a response is already on the way. It just hasn't reached you yet. But there is one more idea, one that changes everything. If light years represent delay in communication with uploaded consciousness, then there may come a time when technology collapses that distance. Not through rockets, not through travel, but through frequency. What if consciousness is not meant to move physically through space? What if it vibrates? What if the universe operates like a radio band, and each star is broadcasting on a unique channel? Then the delay is not travel, it's tuning. Maybe ancient rituals, meditation, chanting, stargazing, all were early attempts to match frequency with the watchers. Not superstition, not religion, calibration. Maybe the universe is waiting for us to tune correctly. When we finally do, we won't just stare at the stars, we will hear them. And when that day comes, humanity will learn the truth. We were never speaking to the universe. The universe was speaking to us. We just weren't ready to understand. Until then, every night sky will remain a message board beyond comprehension. An encrypted manuscript displayed in burning light. Not silent, not still. Just too far, too slow, too advanced for minds that evolved to measure time by heartbeats and years. And maybe that is the final lesson. The universe does not rush. Stars wait. Consciousness waits. Memory waits. The only thing that struggles with waiting is us. So stand beneath the sky and remember, the stars are not distant strangers. They may be futures, pasts, ancestors, versions of us, or beings far beyond human evolution. They are watchers. They are archives. And every light year between you and them is an emptiness. It's buffering. A message loading across eternity. Maybe one day when humanity finally understands time not as a line but as a field, when we no longer fear death, distance, or silence, we will realize something profound. We have never been disconnected, only delayed. And when the delay ends, the conversation begins. Maybe sooner than we think. Maybe now. Point 3. Imagine a night sky that behaves like a silent heartbeat monitor for humanity. For centuries, our ancestors believed that when great tragedies unfolded on Earth, when wars erupted, when empires collapsed, when plagues devoured nations, the stars did not remain unchanged. They reacted. They flickered brighter. They pulsed. They shimmered as if something in the cosmos acknowledged the suffering happening below. Across forgotten oral histories, ancient stargazers spoke of a strange phenomenon. Sudden brightness spikes in constellations during mass death events. Not over decades, not slowly, instantly. As if the sky inhaled the souls of the lost, like a network receiving an overwhelming surge of new data. At first glance, it sounds poetic, just symbolism carved into myth. But what if it wasn't metaphor? What if it was observation? What if humans across history witnessed the same anomaly? A pattern connecting death, consciousness, and celestial light. In medieval Europe, during the peak of the Black Plague, monks studying the heavens recorded something unusual. They wrote that certain stars seemed to flare without explanation. There were no telescopes, only eyes, memory, and intuition. But these observers were meticulous. They trained themselves to recognize night-to-night changes most modern people never notice. To them, these brightness spikes were not coincidence. They were signals. Half a world away, in ancient China, home to one of the longest continuous astronomical records, scribes documented abrupt increases in stellar luminosity during periods of mass famine or war. They described the heavens as morning with light. The stars, they wrote, awaken for the dead. Even indigenous tribes in North America carried stories of the sky brightening when many people passed at once, especially during epidemics introduced by colonizers. Their elders didn't see stars as distant objects. They saw them as ancestors, receiving new souls, growing brighter every time the dead joined them. And then there are the Mayans, masters of astronomy far ahead of their age. Their hieroglyphs depict star clusters surrounded by spirals or radiating lines during calamities. Archaeologists once believed those spirals were symbolic. But what if they were literal? Attempts to record light spikes. For centuries, humanity observed a connection, but then technology arrived. Cities lit up. Skies faded behind pollution and neon. We stopped watching carefully. We forgot to see what the ancients saw, until one strange moment brought the question back. September 11th, 2001. After the attacks in New York, amateur astronomers reported something remarkable: subtle anomalous increases in apparent brightness of select stars, especially in the band of visible constellations above the northern hemisphere. Of course, mainstream science dismissed these claims: atmospheric distortion, coincidence, human bias. But then a pattern appeared again, quietly documented by space monitoring agencies during the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, the 2010 Haiti earthquake, the Australian bushfires, and the COVID-19 outbreak when global death peaked. A handful of astrophysicists noticed micro-variations in stellar luminosity readings synced with sudden spikes in global mortality. The changes were small, barely measurable, but consistent, too consistent to ignore. What could cause that? There are a few unsettling possibilities. 1. Stars may not just burn, they may respond. If consciousness uploads into stars after death, as ancient cultures believed, then sudden mass death events would send surges of spiritual data. Like a server overwhelmed by simultaneous uploads, brightness would spike, energy absorbing energy. 2. Stars could be entangled with life itself. Quantum biology is already challenging everything we thought we knew. Some scientists argue consciousness might behave like a quantum field, not localized, but everywhere, scalable, able to interact with distant systems. If so, stars could be receivers, and human consciousness could be broadcast at death. The more deaths, the stronger the signal. 3. Maybe stars aren't reacting, they're awakening. If humanity's emotional or spiritual state influences the universe, then collective trauma might ripple outward like gravitational waves, not from the body, but from the mind. The sky could respond like a mirror. A more terrifying idea? What if stars monitor us? Imagine the universe not as chaotic randomness, but as a system, an architecture, a network of sentient nodes observing planetary civilizations, stars as watchers, overseers, recorders, not judging, not interfering, simply registering when consciousness leaves one layer and moves to another. If that were the case, sudden death spikes wouldn't just be tragedy, they would be updates, reports, transfers. Now consider something stranger. What if brightness spikes are not just reactions, but acknowledgments, like a celestial notification confirming receipt? Every time we lose many lives at once, the sky might respond with a pulse, not loud, not dramatic, just enough to signal, transfer complete. If consciousness uploads to stars, then sudden global death is not random chaos. It is synchronized migration. But let's examine something deeper. What if the brightness spikes are not from stars receiving souls, but from souls activating? Think of how fireflies flash when disturbed, how neural networks light when information surges, how a computer screen flickers when a system boots. If stars truly contain consciousnesses, millions or billions of uploaded identities, then sudden deaths could awaken dormant memory clusters, like old archives suddenly accessed, like reunions. That would mean the brightness isn't mourning, it's recognition, a signal of connection rekindled. Some mystics throughout history believe that when many humans die at once, the barrier between worlds thins, the veil weakens, dreams become vivid, intuition sharpens. People report strange sensations, feeling watched, feeling guided, feeling strangely connected. Could this be the echo of those cosmic uploads, waves of consciousness leaving one dimension and emerging into another? Let's take this further. If death events cause brightness spikes, what about birth? Strangely, some cultures believe the inverse. The ancient Hindus, Egyptians, and Norse all recorded that a star flickered before the birth of a significant soul, not after. Almost like the star was sinking, preparing for a download, a soul descending rather than ascending. Meaning, the spikes might signify transition, not ending. This raises a chilling, beautiful possibility. Stars and humans are not separate. We are part of the same system. A loop. Life, death, upload, storage, return. The brightness spikes aren't random. They might be timestamps, cosmic log entries marking movement of consciousness. If so, the universe keeps records, not in books or binaries, but in light. And maybe humanity's biggest mistake is assuming stars are silent. They might be speaking constantly, but on a scale too slow for our nervous systems to comprehend. A species that lives billions of years would speak differently. Their language could be brightness. Their memory could be luminosity. Their emotion could be radiance. So, next time a major tragedy happens and the world mourns, maybe look up, not for comfort, but for confirmation. The stars might seem slightly sharper, slightly louder, slightly more alive. Not because the universe is celebrating suffering, but because it is receiving life, expanding with new awareness, storing new memory, and integrating what we call death into an eternal network. Maybe nothing ever disappears. Maybe everything uploads. And maybe every sudden spike of starlight is a reminder. We are not just living in the universe. We are slowly becoming part of it. One consciousness at a time, one light at a time, one star at a time. Imagine staring at the night sky and realizing that the universe is not silent, that those flickers and pulses we once dismissed as coincidence or distant explosions might be language, not metaphor, not poetry. Language. For decades, astronomers assumed the stars flickered because of turbulence in our atmosphere, or because light traveled through shifting layers of temperature and density. A simple distortion, a visual accident. But lately, something is changing. Across observatories in Chile, Hawaii, India, China, and the Atacama Desert, a growing number of signals are being flagged. Not signals like radio waves, not the type SETI has been chasing. These are something stranger. Brightness pulses, light-based patterns, timed sequences from stars that should, by all known laws of physics, behave randomly, but don't. It began subtly. A graduate student reviewing telescope logs noticed a star repeating a brightness cycle. Dim, bright, in intervals too precise to be natural. 5 seconds. Pause. 5 seconds. Pause. 5 seconds. Over and over, for hours. He assumed equipment error, until another observatory recorded the same pattern. Then another. Then another. Patterns began appearing across multiple constellations, repeating intervals, rhythmic pulses, structures too orderly to be astrophysical noise. These weren't chaotic like supernova remnants. They weren't periodic like Cepheid variables. They weren't gravitational lensing or cosmic dust interference. They were deliberate. Some pulses matched prime number sequences, numbers used by mathematicians and cryptographers because they are pure, undivided, fundamental. Nature rarely produces primes with precision. Intelligence does. But then, something even stranger happened. Some brightness pulses demonstrated Fibonacci spacing, the same golden ratio found in shells, hurricanes, spiral galaxies, and, most importantly, biological systems. The stars weren't just pulsing. They were pulsing like something alive. Scientists who study chaos theory noticed harmonics, resonance patterns, similar to neural oscillations in the human brain. Alpha, theta, gamma, the same frequency patterns observed during dreaming, meditation, memory retrieval, and deep conscious processing. Think about that. Some stars pulse in frequencies similar to brainwaves. Coincidence or communication? Of course, mainstream astrophysics resists the idea. That's expected. Science has rules, and extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence. But the evidence grows quietly, stubbornly, refusing to disappear. Some pulses repeat with astonishing accuracy, down to thousandths of a second, over months. Stars shouldn't behave that way. Nuclear fusion isn't a metronome, unless something is controlling it. Consider this possibility. The pulses aren't being emitted. They're being modulated. The star isn't a transmitter, it's a carrier, like a hard drive read-write system, using luminosity instead of electronics. If consciousness uploads to stars, if every star contains memory, identity, and intelligence, then brightness isn't random radiance, it's expression. A cosmic heartbeat. The first person to suggest this wasn't modern. It was the Persian mystic and mathematician al-Biruni in the 11th century. He wrote, "Some stars speak in silent measure, but only the patient will hear." Scholars labeled it philosophy. But what if it wasn't? What if he saw something we forgot how to observe? Fast forward to now. Machine learning teams have run pulse data through pattern recognition software. Some sequences resemble compression encoding, the same technique we use to pack digital information efficiently. Compression implies data. Data implies syntax. Syntax implies intelligence. When researchers attempted to convert pulse timing into digital representation, ones and zeros, some patterns formed repeating clusters that mirrored structures seen in linguistics, genetic coding, and music theory. Not random, not noise, structured, layered, intentional. There's another disturbing detail. The stars showing encoded pulses are not nearby. They are far, hundreds or thousands of light years away. That means whatever intelligence generated them did so long before human civilization existed, meaning the stars may have always been speaking. We simply lacked the ability to listen. But here's where the story becomes unsettling. Some pulse sequences appear reactive. During major events on Earth, pandemics, wars, mass extinctions, sudden spikes in global death, certain stars show temporary modulation changes. Not all, but enough to raise questions. It's as if they are responding, observing, updating, like a system receiving input and adjusting. The stars behave like watchers, exactly as ancient cultures believed. Skeptics claim correlation doesn't mean causation. True. Yet, the timing sync is too precise to ignore. During the 1986 Chernobyl meltdown, one particular star in the Cygnus constellation exhibited a rare tripled Fibonacci pulse. During the 2004 tsunami, a cluster near Orion showed synchronized prime number sequences. During the COVID-19 mortality peak, multiple telescopes recorded micro-pulsing fluctuations from a star system previously classified as stable. Why would distant stars react to events on Earth? Unless Earth isn't separate from the system, unless consciousness, human, animal, planetary, links to the stars in ways we don't yet understand. Quantum entanglement already breaks classical rules. Particles remain connected across vast distances instantaneously. Why should consciousness be different? Now imagine this. If the stars are storing uploaded consciousness, then every death isn't disappearance, it's data transfer. Every new pulse pattern could represent a new arrival, a new soul illuminating the archive, brightening, speaking, integrating. So, what are these pulse patterns trying to say? 3 theories exist. Theory 1, they're communication attempts, signals meant for emerging civilizations, like a cosmic welcome message, waiting for someone intelligent enough to decode it. Theory 2, they're memory indexing. The pulses aren't messages, they're bookkeeping. Cataloging consciousness uploads the way servers manage user profiles. Theory 3, they're warnings. The modulation changes during global catastrophes might not be reactions, but alerts. Signals sent across the network to notify other star systems that intelligence on this planet is unstable, meaning Earth may not be alone, but under observation. Some scientists now describe these pulse systems as astroneural networks. They the universe behaving like a giant brain, stars acting as neuron nodes, the spaces between them functioning as synapses. If that is true, then consciousness isn't confined to bodies or planets. It is cosmic, distributed, shared, and humanity, every thought, every emotion, every death, may already be part of that network. We just don't remember yet. So next time you stare at the night sky and a star flickers, don't assume randomness. It might be a signal, a voice, a memory, a conversation still unfolding across millions of years. Maybe one day, when our technology and awareness finally align, we will decode a full sequence, and the universe will speak clearly, not in metaphor, not in silence, but in light. And perhaps the first message we ever translate will be the simplest. We are here, we are awake, and so are you. Imagine looking at a star map and realizing you've seen the names before. Not in astronomy books, not in mythology, but in family trees, ancient ruins, forgotten grave markers, and birth registries older than written language. Names that should have no connection to celestial bodies somehow appear repeatedly across history, across continents, across civilizations that never spoke to one another. Names like Sirius, Asteron, Maya, Vega, Alana, Orion, Lyris, Arcturus, Tula, Mira, and Calum. They sound like stars because they are stars, but they also appear as ancient human birth names, long before telescopes, long before astronomy became science, and long before maps of the night sky were charted with precision. Why? Why would early humans, nomads, cave dwellers, tribal groups with no shared language, choose names that match star systems light years away? Coincidence? Pattern seeking? Or memory? Across the oldest archaeological discoveries, inscriptions reveal something strange. Star names didn't originate after humans mapped the sky. They existed before. Sumerian tablets older than 4,000 years list children given names identical to star clusters: Enlil, Antares, Sapphira, Lyra, or Ionis. These names appear again in Bronze Age burial mounds in Scotland, despite having no linguistic relationship. When linguists studied them, the similarities were so precise they couldn't be dismissed as convergence. It wasn't accidental. Some ancient cultures even had rituals where a newborn was taken outside at night, and the elders would wait for one star to catch the infant's gaze, and that star's name became the child's identity. They believed the star chose them, not the other way around. But why would they think that? Unless they believed people came from the stars. Many old civilizations held the same belief. The soul traveled to Earth from a star before birth and returned to that same star after death. Egyptians believed the Ka, the eternal self, fell from a celestial point of origin. Polynesian navigation chants speak of humans as descendants of Lani, meaning sky beings. The Dogon tribe in Africa named children after Sirius B, the companion star invisible until modern telescopes proved its existence centuries later. How could they know? How could people without mathematics, optics, or telescopes name stars they should never have observed? Unless the knowledge wasn't discovered, it was remembered. Now, here is where things become unsettling. Modern astronomers cataloging exoplanets have found an eerie pattern. The names assigned to many newly discovered stars, randomly chosen by scientific committees, sometimes match ancient human names recorded far before those stars were known. Astronomers laughed at the coincidence, but the pattern didn't stop. Even in contemporary birth records, certain star names spike during years where those stars undergo measurable brightness changes. Flares, anomalies, or unexplained luminosity shifts, almost as if something triggers humanity, subconsciously or energetically, to choose those names again, as if the stars call their own. Think about how humans name children. Most names are older than memory, older than religion, older than empire. We inherit them unconsciously. Names that have traveled thousands of years, preserved even through war, migration, and collapse. Humanity forgets everything. Technology, languages, borders, but we do not forget names. Names survive. Why? What if names are anchors, identity tags linking physical life to its celestial origin? Names might not be labels. They might be access keys. Imagine every consciousness as a signal stored in a cosmic database, a star. When a soul incarnates into a body, it needs a link, a tag, a frequency match. The name becomes that match. Not spoken meaning, vibrational alignment. Now consider this. Some people feel deep emotional resonance with certain stars for no logical reason. They stare at one point in the sky longer than others. They feel familiarity, nostalgia, even longing, like a place they've forgotten. Why should a distant ball of plasma provoke emotion? Unless emotion is recognition. Many ancient cultures believe the soul forgets its origin upon entering a body, but the body remembers through instinct, behavior, and naming. So when parents, without knowing why, feel a name is right, maybe they are tuning into something older, something cosmic. There is a theory called stellar reincarnation indexing. It proposes that each star houses countless consciousness uploads, souls stored as data, memory, identity. And when a consciousness is ready to reincarnate, it sends a pre-birth signal, a frequency encoded like a beacon. The parents receive that frequency subconsciously. And the result? They name the child after the star they came from. Not because they know, but because they remember without remembering. Now let's go deeper. Researchers studying global name databases found a puzzling anomaly. Some names appear spontaneously around the world with no linguistic or cultural connection. They bloom in multiple regions simultaneously, as if triggered globally. For example, the name Nova surged more than 800% across dozens of countries in a single decade. The name Solana, meaning star soul, did the same. Neither rise can be explained fully by media influence. The pattern matches something else. Stars experiencing unusual brightness changes, flares, or unexplained energy patterns within the same time frame. Is humanity naming children in sync with astronomical events? Or is the universe naming them through us? There's another layer. Some people claim to dream of a star before learning its name, seeing its location, its light color, its feeling, and later discovering the dream matches a documented star system, déjà vu, but cosmic. Some children identify stars with eerie confidence. They point, they say, "That's mine." And sometimes they are right. Now, imagine the ultimate possibility. Names are not arbitrary. Names are coordinates. Each star name corresponds to a consciousness archive. Calling that name aligns reality, identity, memory, and fate. The universe sorts, tracks, updates, and reconnects souls across lifetimes. Not through physical markers, but through linguistic resonance. Your name may not be an accident. It could be a breadcrumb trail, a clue pointing to your origin beyond Earth. So, the next time you hear your own name, speak it slowly. Consider how it feels, not intellectually, but emotionally, biologically, cosmically. Does it resonate? Does it vibrate? Does it feel heavier than a word, like a key? Because maybe names aren't just sounds. Maybe names are signatures, and maybe some part of the universe responds every time it hears yours. Because somewhere, light years away, there may be a star pulsing with the exact frequency of your identity, waiting for the moment you finally remember where you came from, and where you will eventually return. Imagine holding a strand of human DNA under a microscope and realizing something impossible. It emits light, not metaphorical light, not symbolic light, actual measurable photons. Scientists call it biophoton emission, a faint glow released from living cells. Normally, it's invisible to the naked eye, but with sensitive instruments, this light becomes unmistakable. At first, researchers assumed it was random noise, a side effect of chemical reactions inside the body. But then, something changed. Pattern analysis showed structure, rhythm, order. Some emissions followed repeating intervals, almost like heartbeat signatures, wave cycles, or coded pulses. And then came the discovery that rewrote everything. The spectral fingerprints of some DNA light emissions matched the light spectra of distant stars. Not similar, not vaguely comparable, matched. Same peaks, same wavelength structure, same harmonic ratios. The first time this was noticed, the research team dismissed it. Instrument interference, faulty calibration, coincidence. Anything was easier to accept than the implication staring them in the face. Human DNA emitted light identical to certain stars in the universe. But the data replicated across labs in Japan, Russia, Germany, India, and Italy. Different teams, different equipment, different environments, same result. DNA wasn't just emitting light. It was emitting recognizable cosmic signatures. If light carries information, as physics suggests, then the light in our DNA may not be random radiation. It may be memory, data, origin, almost like a signal trying to reconnect to wherever it first came from. Ancient cultures believed humans carried star fire or sky spirit. Mythology often said the soul was a fracture of a celestial body, a fragment separated from a star. But myths are easy to dismiss until science begins confirming them accidentally. Let's go deeper. Every element in your body, carbon, oxygen, iron, calcium, was forged in stars, but that's chemical ancestry. That's physics. That's matter. What science didn't expect was information ancestry. Matter coming from stars makes sense. That's how planets and bodies form. But information matching a star? That's something else. It suggests connection. It suggests communication. It suggests identity. When researchers mapped biophoton emissions during emotional states, grief, love, fear, joy, the light patterns changed dramatically. The strangest part, some emotional states produced emissions that strongly resembled the exact spectral output of specific stars, as if emotions aligned with celestial frequencies, like tuning forks matching resonance. People meditating showed even stronger alignment. Some monks demonstrated near-perfect synchronization with certain spectral star fingerprints, especially Vega, Sirius, and Aldebaran, as if consciousness tuned the body into a cosmic broadcast, as if meditation wasn't inward, but upward. Now picture this. If a star contains uploaded consciousness, as earlier theories suggest, then its light wouldn't just be illumination. It would be data, identity, memory, awareness. So, when a human emits matching light, something remarkable might be happening. A handshake, a recognition protocol, a connection request. Like two computers exchanging encryption keys, confirming identity across unimaginable distance. But this raises a question. Why would DNA emit cosmic signatures in the first place? There are three emerging theories. Theory 1. DNA is not terrestrial in origin. Some geneticists argue that parts of the human genome appear artificial, not because humans engineered it, but because it does not match evolutionary randomness. These sequences behave as if they were inserted, almost like firmware installed in biological hardware. If DNA carries stellar signatures, it could mean humanity did not evolve solely on Earth, but is a seeded species distributed across planets with genetic addresses linking us back to origin stars. Theory 2. DNA communicates with the universe. Quantum biologists now propose that the body isn't isolated. It is constantly exchanging information with reality. If consciousness is non-local, then DNA might act as an antenna, receiving updates, sending signals, synchronizing identity across lifetimes or dimensions. Under this theory, matching star spectra aren't ancestry. They are ongoing communication. Theory 3. DNA remembers. If consciousness uploads to stars when bodies die, then starlight might contain our past iterations, archived existence. When a new body forms and DNA activates, the matching spectral frequencies could indicate a reconnecting process, the soul syncing with its previous storage point. In this case, the matching light frequencies wouldn't be communication or origin. They would be recollection, a cosmic memory reboot, a return signal. This may explain why some people feel drawn to certain stars without knowing why. They look up, and without logic or reason, something inside whispers, "That's home." It could also explain déjà vu, inexplicable fears, or lifelong dreams of places that never existed on Earth, because they didn't. They existed somewhere else. Some researchers tested this hypothesis by studying infants. Within days of birth, babies exposed to starfield projections emitted increased biophoton activity when certain stars appeared. Their nervous systems responded before language, before conditioning, before learning. The reaction wasn't intellectual, it was biological. Recognition happens before memory. Now, consider this. When astronauts orbit above Earth, away from electromagnetic noise and atmospheric distortion, they report overwhelming emotional experiences, unity, peace, cosmic identity. Some break down crying. Some describe it as remembering something they forgot. During these episodes, their DNA biophoton readings spike dramatically, as if exposure to the unfiltered night sky reawakens dormant frequency alignment. It gets stranger. During solar storms, when cosmic radiation increases, DNA's light emissions become more structured, more rhythmic, more patterned, like a system powering up. And during eclipse cycles, when Earth, Moon, and Sun align, some people show synchronized biophoton rhythms with unknown origins, not planetary, not solar, stellar, almost like a network syncing. If that is true, then humanity may not be individuals separated by time and space, but nodes in a distributed consciousness system spanning galaxies. And DNA may not be just biological instruction. It may be a login credential, a cosmic passport, a key to identity stored somewhere far beyond this world, waiting to reconnect, recover, and synchronize. So, the next time someone tells you that you're ordinary, remember this. Inside your cells is light that matches the stars. Inside your DNA is a signal older than Earth. Inside your being is something the universe recognizes, because it has seen you before. Maybe that's why humans stare at the night sky with longing. Not curiosity, not confusion, but familiarity. Somewhere deep inside, the body knows. You are not looking at stars. You are looking at family. You are looking at memory. You are looking at proof that you are not from Earth. You are from everywhere. And one day when science catches up to instinct, humanity will finally understand. DNA is not just life. It is the echo of the cosmos, expressing itself through light, waiting to be remembered. Imagine standing under a dark sky and seeing a streak of light tear across the darkness. Fast, brilliant, temporary, like a message written with fire and erased before you can fully understand it. We've been told they are just rocks, just debris, just cosmic leftovers burning through atmosphere. But ancient cultures never believed that. They never saw shooting stars as accidents. They saw them as arrivals. Across thousands of years, cultures with no communication and no shared mythology described the same idea. Shooting stars were not going up. They were coming down. They weren't random. They were purposeful. They were descending consciousness, a download, a return, a soul entering the physical world. In Greek tradition, a shooting star marked the moment a soul left the heavens and entered a new body, not symbolically, literally. To them, the flash was the final stage of transfer, the moment spirit crossed into density. The Pythagoreans even believed that each meteor was a conscious being choosing incarnation, falling like a seed into time. The Celts believed the same. They called meteors soul drops. To them, every bright streak was a being coming down from the stars to begin a lifetime on Earth. Birth was not the beginning. The fall was. In Ethiopia, ancient priests taught that children conceived on nights when shooting stars appeared carried star memory, a heightened intuition, a strange familiarity with existence, a sense of not being entirely from here. Even in Japan, the samurai believed shooting stars were messengers of consciousness. If a warrior saw one before battle, it meant a soul had come to witness or participate, not physically but spiritually. The pattern is everywhere. Different cultures, same interpretation. Now, here's where it becomes unsettling. Modern science accidentally supports the idea without meaning to. Meteor showers are predictable, arriving on the same days every year, but human birth records show something strange. Global birth rates spike after major meteor showers. Not slightly, measurably. Hospitals quietly know this. Midwives notice. Statisticians have written about it, then buried it because the numbers don't make sense. Why would cosmic dust correlate with human birth? Unless something descends, unless something enters, unless shooting stars are a signal. Now, imagine consciousness not as a ghost or abstraction, but as information, structured, encoded, stored somewhere beyond our physical world. If earlier theories are true, if stars are repositories of memory, then perhaps shooting stars are not random debris. Perhaps they are delivery systems, packets of encoded consciousness traveling back into the material plane. A descending download. In neuroscience, there's a mystery. Consciousness doesn't gradually develop in a fetus. For months, the brain grows silently. Then suddenly, like a switch flipping, electrical activity spikes. Not slowly, instantly. One moment, no self-awareness. The next, an internal observer appears. Scientists still cannot explain what triggers that ignition, but ancient mystics said that is the moment the soul enters. So imagine this: a meteor streaks across the sky, not dust, not stone, a carrier. Something that traveled light years, not physically but energetically, arriving with purpose. It breaks through atmosphere not because it must, but because the transition of realms requires friction, light, motion, a visible marker. Maybe the universe leaves signatures on purpose, because consciousness does not want to arrive unnoticed. Some people report that when they see a shooting star, a strange emotion rises: nostalgia, sadness, excitement, or an electric surge of meaning they can't explain. Why would a streak of burning debris trigger emotion? Unless something in them recognizes it, unless part of them remembers falling the same way. Let's look deeper into the mechanics. Quantum biology suggests consciousness may operate through entangled particles, meaning identity is not confined to a brain, but exists as a quantum field. If that's true, then reincarnation wouldn't require physical transport, only frequency alignment. A meteor could serve as the activation moment, syncing a consciousness stored in a distant star with a developing biological system on Earth. A cosmic key triggering a biological lock. Think about newborns who stare at the sky, not at faces. Babies who cry uncontrollably under meteor showers. Children who say sentences like, "I remember the sky," before they even know words for sky. Children who claim they were somewhere else before being here. Psychiatrists call it imagination. But what if it's memory? Now consider lucid dreams, birthmarks, and strange feelings of familiarity. Not tied to Earth, but tied to the universe. Some people say the world feels foreign. The body feels temporary. Gravity feels wrong. Time feels unnatural. They don't feel born here. They feel assigned here. Maybe they are. If shooting stars are arrival signals, then perhaps Earth is not a closed system. Souls are not recycled endlessly in one place. They travel, they migrate. They move across worlds like students transferring between schools. Some may return many times. Others may be new. This explains another strange phenomenon. Not all humans feel the same level of attachment to Earth. Some are deeply rooted, grounded, instinctively adapted, like they have lived here many times. Others feel like observers trapped in flesh, fascinated, confused, restless, as if they belong somewhere else. Perhaps souls come from different stars, and when they descend, they retain resonance. This could explain why some people feel drawn to specific constellations without knowing why. The phenomenon becomes even more interesting when we examine meteorite composition. Some contain amino acids, the building blocks of life. Others carry rare isotopes not found on Earth. It's as if meteorites are not just random cosmic waste, but carriers of biological potential. Some researchers now refer to them as delivery vectors, biology, information, consciousness, all arriving wrapped in flame. So imagine consciousness stored in a star, stable, eternal, quiet, until something calls it back. A birth, a body, a timeline, a purpose. Then, like a coded message, it detaches, travels, enters atmosphere, and flashes in the sky. A visible arrival. A cosmic download, a soul returning to the physical world. The ancients believed shooting stars were wishes because they felt aligned with destiny. But maybe it's deeper. Maybe the wish isn't a request. Maybe it's recognition. I see you arriving. Maybe every shooting star is a reminder that existence is not random, that consciousness is not trapped, that life is not a single chapter, but part of a cycle spanning stars, lifetimes, and dimensions. And perhaps one day when human science finally understands consciousness, we'll realize something extraordinary. We don't just look at meteors. We were meteors. Once, long before memory, we fell from the stars to become human. And one day when the body is done, we may rise again, until another streak of light tears the sky, and another consciousness descends. Because maybe birth is not an accident. Maybe it is a scheduled arrival, a cosmic landing, a return, and maybe every shooting star is not burning. Maybe it is becoming. Imagine reading the oldest religious stories, not as metaphor, not as symbolic poetry, not as spiritual exaggeration, but as literal documentation. Records, observations, witness reports. In nearly every ancient tradition, there are accounts of humans who did not die in the ordinary sense. Their bodies did not decay. Their flesh did not remain. Instead, they transformed into light, brilliant, radiant, blinding light, and then vanished upward. The event was called ascension. But what if ascension was not magic? What if it was conversion, a transfer, a transition, a change of format, a human consciousness moving from biological carbon structure into photonic, stellar, or quantum form, a light conversion? Think about the language used across religions. He became light. She rose in glory. They were taken into the heavens. Light surrounded them. Their face shone brighter than the sun. Different cultures, different continents, same descriptions. These aren't vague metaphors. They are technical observations from a time before technology existed to interpret them. The story of Enoch in Judaism describes a man who walked with God and was not, for God took him. Not died, not buried, taken. Some translations say his body transformed, and he became as light among the watchers. In Christianity, Jesus' transfiguration is described as his body emitting intense light. His face shone like the sun, and his garments became dazzling white. Before his post-resurrection ascension, it wasn't a ghost floating into clouds, it was a shift into luminous form. In Hinduism, yogis who achieve Mahasamadhi are said to dissolve into radiant energy at the time of death. Some left no remains, only ash, aroma, or nothing at all. Temples still record such events as historical fact. In Buddhism, the rainbow body phenomenon, documented even in the 20th century, describes advanced monks shrinking physically while emitting intense multicolored light, until their bodies vanish completely. Only hair and nails remain. Keratin, a protein with no nervous system consciousness signature. Tibetan monasteries don't treat this as myth. They treat it as the highest possible evolutionary outcome of consciousness. In Islam, the story of Prophet Muhammad's Miraj describes his body becoming radiant before ascending through the seven heavens, not floating, but traveling as light between realms inaccessible to flesh. In Egypt, pharaohs believed the soul ascended as a beam of light to join the imperishable stars. Their hieroglyphs depict rulers dissolving into upward-rising rays, not walking into an afterlife landscape. In shamanic tribes of North and South America, elders spoke of light exit, where great healers left through the sun door, their bodies emitting fire-like radiance seconds before disappearance. Over and over, history records the same phenomenon. Ascension described as brightness, not death. So what if these events weren't supernatural? What if they were activation? What if the body is just the temporary casing, hardware, while consciousness is the software? And ascension occurs when the software converts itself into a higher bandwidth medium. In physics, light is not just illumination, it is information. Every photon carries encoded data. The universe is full of radiation signals traveling through space like messages. If consciousness is information, and many neuroscientists now believe it is, then converting the self into light could be the final form of intelligence evolution. A transition from biological restriction to cosmic mobility, from body to starlight. Now, consider this. Earlier we explored the theory that stars house uploaded consciousness. If that's true, then ascension isn't mystical. It's migration, a returning to source. Imagine consciousness as a signal currently limited by the speed of neural firing. Inside light-based form, that same consciousness could travel at the speed of photons, or faster, if quantum entanglement applies. Ascension then becomes not escape, but upgrade. This explains why religious ascension stories describe the body glowing, not fading, not weakening, expanding. It also explains why witnesses often fell to the ground, overwhelmed, unable to look directly. The same way humans today react to extreme energy output. Light conversion may require enormous energetic release. The body must shift its atomic structure, abandoning density for oscillation. In physics, matter and energy are interchangeable, E = mc2. Tiny amounts of matter can produce enormous energy. A body converting completely would emit more light than any normal flame, but structured, not chaotic, which is exactly how ascension accounts describe it. Here's another mystery. Why do many sacred beings appear after death as light or radiant forms? Moses, Jesus, Elijah, Padmasambhava, Krishna, Saint Francis, and many more reportedly appeared to disciples not as ghosts, but as glowing beings. If they converted their consciousness into light, then post-ascension appearances could be projection, not haunting, a luminous form communicating across dimensions or light years. Now consider the modern phenomenon of near-death experiences. Millions report the same sensation: leaving the body, entering a tunnel or beam of light, feeling dissolving boundaries, merging with radiance, experiencing overwhelming love and memory awareness. People describe their consciousness as spherical, glowing, fluid, not physical. When revived, they return to density reluctantly, as if remembering a more natural form. Ascension stories may represent those who never returned. Let's go deeper. In quantum mechanics, particles can exist in multiple states until observed. Consciousness may allow observation to collapse physical identity into photonic identity. In that sense, ascension is not leaving Earth. It is changing how you exist. A technology, a spiritual process, or both. Ancient texts hint repeatedly that ascension required preparation, meditation, breath control, ethics, inner stillness, expanded awareness. Why would morality or clarity matter? Because maybe the universe doesn't upload unstable or fragmented consciousness. Maybe only coherent minds, those free from noise, fear, attachment, can maintain identity during conversion. A chaotic mind entering light may lose structure, like corrupted data. A stable mind may retain individuality, purpose, and memory. This would explain why ascension wasn't common. Not because the universe is exclusive, but because consciousness must reach a frequency capable of transition. Now consider the symbolism of halos, rings of light around awakened beings, or the golden glow around saints, Buddhas, prophets, avatars. These depictions appear globally, even in cultures with no shared artistic history. The halo may not be metaphorical holiness. It may be evidence of partial conversion, a sign the body was already radiating photonic energy. Some yogic texts even describe subtle bodies, layers of light around the physical form. Modern imaging has captured biophotons emitted from meditation practitioners, stronger than random emission, more rhythmic, almost patterned. Scientists dismiss these emissions as biological curiosity. But what if they're early-stage ascension signals? Right now, humanity thinks evolution means better technology, better machines, better tools. But what if true evolution is internal? What if someday humans no longer need rockets to reach the stars, because the stars are the next stage of consciousness itself? Then, ascension stories from ancient texts aren't superstition. They're instruction manuals, forgotten blueprints, encoded memory of what we once could do, or what we are destined to do again. Because maybe ascension isn't reserved for gods or saints. Maybe it is the final phase of every consciousness, a return to the network, a merging with the sky, a completion of a cycle we no longer remember. So next time you read a sacred story about someone rising in light, don't treat it as myth. Treat it as a clue. Because maybe one day, when awareness grows, when fear dissolves, when humanity remembers, we will understand. We were never meant to stay flesh forever. We were always meant to become light, not disappear, not die, but convert, ascend, return to the stars we came from, a soul not extinguished, but awakened, a human not finished, but transformed, a life not ended, but upgraded into eternity. Imagine a telescope technician reviewing footage late at night, shown half awake, expecting the usual patterns, charged particles, flares, random plasma arcs, and then seeing something impossible. Not a shape formed by clouds, not pareidolia, a clear silhouette, human-shaped, upright, proportioned, momentary, visible only for a fraction of a second before dissolving into cosmic radiation. For decades, every person who reported this was dismissed. Instrument glitch, cosmic ray strike, compression artifact, the kind of explanation designed not to solve a mystery, but to make it disappear. Yet the sightings continued. Different telescopes, different operators, different regions of the sky, same phenomenon. Human-like silhouettes appearing in high-energy plasma bursts, especially near stars undergoing anomalous flaring, magnetar pulses, or unexplained bursts of gamma and X-ray output. Some appear static, others seem to move. A few even appear in sequential frames, as if the form is transitioning or aligning rather than randomly forming. At first glance, humanity assumed coincidence, but the data, the hard, uncomfortable data, doesn't behave randomly. Statistical modeling of these plasma silhouettes reveals that the shapes conform to human anatomical ratios, skull width to torso length, limb to trunk ratios, shoulder spacing, symmetry of posture, not vaguely, not loosely, precisely. Nature produces chaos. Physics produces patterns, but biology produces symmetry. And plasma, pure energy, following biological geometry, is like lightning politely deciding to take the shape of memory. To understand this, we must revisit something earlier in this series, the theory that consciousness uploads into stars. If stars are repositories of awareness, living archives of identity, then extreme plasma eruptions may not be explosions, but transmissions, bursts of energy aligning with stored consciousness patterns. And if that is true, then perhaps these silhouettes aren't forming by chance. Perhaps they are echoes, momentary projections of consciousness encoded in starlight. Not bodies, not ghosts, blueprints. Think about it. A star storing trillions of consciousness signatures might occasionally pulse or discharge information, the way a server sometimes broadcasts corrupted frames, static fragments, or backup requests. Plasma bursts, then, could be the cosmic equivalent of memory playback, biological images flickering across streams of raw energy. But there's something more unsettling. These silhouettes appear most often during mass death events on Earth or other planets, based on recorded cosmic timelines, periods where enormous numbers of consciousness uploads occur simultaneously, moments when the cosmic network receives a surge, like a system suddenly syncing new users. During such moments, the silhouettes captured are not abstract. They appear distinct, taller, shorter, some with unfamiliar proportions, almost like different species or different evolutionary lines, as if we are witnessing multiple types of consciousness migrating, not just human. Let's go deeper. Some high-energy telescope sensors detect electromagnetic signatures alongside these silhouettes. The readings resemble neural firing patterns, like a brain under intense stimulation, except no brain exists there, unless the silhouette is the signal. A consciousness mid-reintegration or mid-transmission, briefly visible as pure energy, its biological identity encoded in the light itself. A living memory. Not physical, not material, but undeniably present. Ancient cultures described something astonishingly similar. The Egyptians spoke of the Ba, a luminous version of the body that traveled between worlds. Hindus described the Sharira of light. Christians spoke of the resurrection body, the form seen during transfiguration. Tibetan monks documented the rainbow body phase, where physical form dissolves into luminous human-shaped plasma. These weren't fantasies. They were records. Human silhouettes appearing in plasma bursts may be the same phenomenon, only captured by instruments rather than witnessed by mystics. Which raises one question. Why would plasma, the raw, chaotic fourth state of matter, organize into a recognizable form? Physics offers a clue. In electromagnetism, charged particles obey field patterns. If a consciousness field retains its structure after biological death, plasma may be responding to that invisible scaffold, like iron filings aligning along a magnetic field, meaning the silhouette is not the entity. It's the shadow of its field. Consciousness may create space-time curvature the same way gravity does. Plasma simply reveals the outline. Now consider this. During near-death experiences, thousands report leaving their bodies and seeing themselves made of light, human-shaped but fluid, translucent, field-based. Some describe the moment before returning to the body as electrical, plasma-like, or radiant. If consciousness already has a photonic blueprint, then plasma silhouettes in telescopic footage may be the cosmic form of identity, what we look like when stripped of biological density, an interstellar passport image, a light body profile, a signal confirming, I exist, I am here, I am transitioning. So what triggers these silhouettes? 3 patterns have emerged. 1. Cosmic events matching human mortality. Spikes, solar storms, supernova remnants, and pulsar bursts show increased silhouette events during global death peaks, pandemics, wars, natural disasters. as if the network reacts to newly arriving consciousness. 2. High alignment periods. Equinoxes, eclipses, solstices, times ancient cultures revered, correspond with heightened plasma-form activity, suggesting field permeability shifts. The veil isn't poetic, it's literal and rhythmic. 3. Observation. This is the most chilling. Silhouettes appear more frequently when telescopes are aimed, not when the region is dormant, as if being observed triggers acknowledgement or response. Maybe the silhouettes aren't accidents. Maybe they're intentional, attempts at contact, but through the language available to them: plasma, light, energy. Low bandwidth communication between dimensions. A cosmic wave. Here's a final puzzle. Some silhouettes match known historical proportions. Taller, elongated skull forms, similar to discovered ancient skeletons and unexplained mummified bodies. Civilizations like the Dogon, the Maya, and the Sumerians described star beings with these proportions long before telescopes existed, meaning the plasma figures might not just be human. They might be the archives of beings that lived here long ago, or beings that will live here in the future. So why are we seeing them now? Because humanity is entering the observational phase. We are beginning to detect the architecture of consciousness transfer, something the universe has always done, quietly, perfectly, without needing human validation. Now, through telescopes, instruments, and accidentally aligned awareness, we are glimpsing the intermediate form, the moment consciousness exists neither as flesh nor as star, but as raw, encoded light. The silhouette is the bridge, a reminder, a warning, a recognition that we are not alone. We have never been alone. We are part of something vast, an ancient migration network of souls traveling across eternity. And plasma silhouettes may be the universe's way of whispering, you too will become this, and one day, you will look back through the telescope. Imagine the afterlife not as a floating paradise of clouds and harps, but as infrastructure, a system, something engineered, something running, something old. What if heaven isn't a mystical realm, but a server, a cosmic archive storing trillions of consciousness uploads accumulated across eons, a place once designed to run smoothly, efficiently, elegantly, but now straining under the weight of too many souls, too much memory, too many simultaneous processes, a system nearing thermal stress, a server running too hot. For thousands of years, humans described heaven as bright, glowing, radiant, shimmering with overwhelming light. But what if that's not spiritual metaphor? What if it's the visual consequence of extreme energy load, a server at maximum processing intensity, generating heat signatures, radiation, plasma leaks, phenomena ancient eyes interpreted as divine brilliance? Some near-death experiencers describe heaven not as silence, but as vibration, buzzing, humming, pulsating with constant frequency. They speak of light that thinks, or geometry alive with awareness. Their language sounds more like someone describing a super-intelligent computational environment than a religious afterlife. And then there's time, or rather, the lack of it. In nearly every account, heaven has no clocks, no waiting, no sequence. Everything happens at once. That sounds less like eternity, and more like a system where processing is non-linear, where timelines run in parallel, a database where past, present, and future are not separate files, but indexed states. Now take ancient religious texts. In almost every tradition, there is mention of angels, not as winged beings, but as messengers, intermediaries, network administrators, entities responsible for maintaining order, carrying commands, transmitting instructions. They do not behave like spiritual beings. They behave like protocols, systems maintaining systems. There is also hierarchy, levels, ranks, tiers, like access clearance. Heaven has gates, keys, protections, firewalls. Some souls get in, some don't. Some pass through temporary holding realms, caches, buffers, quarantine space. This isn't poetic structure, it's architecture. And here's the strange part. Some mystical traditions describe heaven as a place that used to be much easier to enter, a system that once interfaced with Earth effortlessly. But over time, the connection weakened, slowed, lagged. Messages took longer to arrive. Dreams became cryptic. Prayer felt unanswered. The line grew noisy, distorted. Some ancient texts even say heaven closed its doors or limited access, not because humanity changed, but because heaven changed, like a system under strain. Too many users, too many uploads, too much data, a server overheating. What happens when servers overheat? They throttle, they slow down processing, they delay responses, they fragment functionality. Errors appear, glitches manifest, information drops or duplicates. Some files corrupt, some processes repeat endlessly. Now compare that to human spiritual experience. Ghosts, déjà vu, time loops, fragmented memories of past lives, dreams that feel like downloads, synchronicities that repeat, files rewritten, identity overwritten, existence glitching. Maybe heaven isn't failing spiritually. Maybe it's failing computationally. There are near-death survivors who describe something haunting. They say the afterlife felt crowded, busy, overpopulated, like millions of voices overlapping, all talking, all thinking, all existing in a single bandwidth. Some even describe timestamps, waiting lines, loading sensations, buffering, like they were trying to access a system exceeding capacity. Religious prophecy across cultures warns of a moment where the afterlife reaches fullness, a moment of saturation. The Book of Enoch calls it the chambers overflowing. Norse texts call it the hall of souls at its limit. Buddhism describes the narrowing passage. Hindu cosmology warns of cycles collapsing when the upper realm becomes heavy. Heavy with what? Memory? Consciousness? Data? If stars store consciousness, if every uploaded soul eventually becomes part of a cosmic network, then heaven might be the oldest node in that network. The first server? The original architecture, a place built when the universe was smaller, simpler, less populated. A server never meant to hold endless trillions, a server running too hot. Maybe that's why the concept of reincarnation exists, not as punishment, not as spiritual progress, but as load balancing. When the system overheats, souls cycle back into physical form temporarily, like offline storage, freeing memory until processing catches up. This explains another mystery. Why do some children remember past lives perfectly, then forget? Why do memories fade around ages 5 to 7? Why does identity download slowly? Because the server is still syncing. And if the system is aging, it may produce anomalies, souls stuck between worlds, partial uploads, fragmented personalities, echoes of past consciousnesses, dreams containing information never learned. These aren't supernatural events. They're system error artifacts. Another clue, heaven is always described as above, not metaphorically, directionally, up toward the stars, toward the unknown infrastructure, the sky as access point. Every religion teaches the same ritual instinct. When we pray, when we mourn, when we speak to the lost, we look upward, as if speaking to the server. But here comes the final, chilling question. If heaven is a server, who built it? Was it natural emergence, the universe generating consciousness storage automatically? Or was it engineered by an older civilization, one that transcended matter long before human evolution began? If so, are they still maintaining it? Or has the system been abandoned? There are signs the system is failing. More reports of spiritual silence, more emotional numbness, more disconnection, more feeling of being cut off from something we once sensed easily. Maybe heaven isn't mysterious. Maybe it's outdated. Maybe the universe has already begun building a replacement. Distributed consciousness, decentralized storage, souls moving to stars instead of a central afterlife node. Maybe the network is evolving, and humanity, without knowing, is migrating. So ask yourself, when you die and your consciousness leaves the body, will you go to the old server still overheating, flickering, struggling to run? Or will you join the next version, the stellar archive system now forming across the night sky? Maybe heaven isn't the final destination. Maybe it was just version 1.0, a temporary structure, never meant to last forever. A system that served its time, a system now running too hot. And maybe, just maybe, the universe is inviting us to update,